Hope everyone is doing all right today. My name is Jamarl Thomas. I am your host. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Julian Assange, I would argue, is being part of somewhat of a stitch-up. Meaning, Swedish prosecutors have just decided to reopen a case against Assange. In the article, what started off, I remember, as being sexual assault has now morphed into rape. And not just rape, has now morphed into cases. The truth of the matter is Assange was in Sweden for weeks and was available entirely to the Swedish prosecutor. George Galloway made a really good point. He said, and he told me when him and I were talking, he says, look, the British judicial system is not as beholden to the political instrument as their legislative, the parliamentarian branch. Meaning, the system that interact with foreign policy has less impact on the judicial branch itself. Now, I waver on this, seeing as they put him in Belmarsh prison, and seeing as they gave him the maximum sentence after already being detained for the past 7 years or 6 years. But George Galloway's point should be taken, because his point is this is somewhat of a stitch-up. If you can't get him one way, you get him the other way. Meaning, what Britain can't do regarding its legal system, or if its legal instrument drops the ball, Sweden is there to pick it up with this notion of extraditing to the United States. It's if I don't get you here, I get you with this one. If Britain doesn't do the job of extraditing you to the United States for whatever reason, Sweden will do it. The absurdity of this is the fact that this exists. This document exists. Right here. Swedish prosecutors. Look at this. Sweden tried to drop Assange extradition in 2013. Crown Prosecution Service shows. They were emails. They got a hold of emails showing that Sweden wanted to drop the charges in 2013. The UK didn't want them to do that. I wonder why the UK didn't want them to do that and try to get rid of the evidence. Swedish prosecutors attempted to drop extradition proceedings against Julian Assange as early as 2013. They didn't want to have anything to do with it, according to confidential exchange of emails with the Crown Prosecution Service seen by The Guardian. The sequence of messages appears to challenge statements by the CPS that the case was not live at the time the emails were deleted by prosecutors, according to supporters of WikiLeaks' founder. They deleted emails. But ultimately, they were having a conversation with Swedish prosecutors who wanted to drop it, and the CPS didn't want them to. Why would Britain care? Right? Isn't that an operative question? Why would Britain have a dog in this hunt? Why would Britain care one way or the other whether Julian Assange was extradited to Sweden? Meaning, why do they care if Sweden has that charge or not? If Sweden decides to get rid of the charge, so what? Julian Assange still has to deal with the running from bail charge, which is nonsense. He wasn't running from bail. He's not on the beach. He was literally stuck in an embassy. But whatever. That would be the individual distinct charge that you would have to deal with. The extradition, what does it matter? Why on earth is Britain pushing for extradition of Assange to Sweden? What does that... I guess my point is this. What does Britain have to do with this? Why on earth is Britain involved in this way? The fact that prosecutors now have decided that they want to get their hands, potentially, on Julian Assange, when back in 2013, when talking privately, they didn't, that looks weird. That looks extremely bizarre. The fact that Britain tried to get rid of the evidence, that looks bizarre. The fact that Britain cares in the first place looks bizarre. The United States wanted to get their hands on Julian Assange. It would make sense if Britain was being pushed as a lapdog nation, a desperate nation for a trade deal, a desperate nation leaving the European Union, a lapdog nation. It would make sense if they were being pushed in the sense of extraditing them to the United States, pushed to ensure that he's extradited either to Sweden, in which case he would be extradited to the United States. They just want to get their hands on him using whatever legal instrument, be it Sweden's or the UK's. They need to explain why they wanted to drop it in 2013, but all of a sudden have a fire under their ass to get their hands onto him. Just saying. I'm not going to keep this long. Just to give this one. Prosecutors in Sweden have reopened their investigation into the 2010 rape allegation against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, a first step towards seeking extradition to Sweden. Here's the thing. He was never running from a quote-unquote rape allegation. They closed the case. The case was closed. They wanted to close the case. The UK was pushing them to open the case. Julian Assange was in Sweden dealing and talking. It wasn't one of those things that he was running from. This looks dodgy. That's all I'm saying. This looks extremely dodgy. You only have other countries' word to take for this. All of these countries are lapdogs of the United States, meaning all of them are hostile to Julian Assange's interests. You shouldn't take for granted these random, this guy committed rape, this guy touched this person, this guy did this guy did that. Especially when you have powerful interests that hate his guts. I'll leave it here. I don't want this one to be long. It just makes no sense, in a legal sense or logical sense, that Sweden is trying to kill the case. UK is trying to force them to open the case, even though the UK shouldn't have anything really to do with this. They should have no concern at all with the well-being of Assange one way or the other, unless, again, they're motivated to get their hands on him in a way that goes beyond this kind of typical legal thing, but into powers, invested interests want to get their hands on him. So right here. It's unclear whether or not they're going to do this. This is just the first stages of potentially extraditing him. Person said that the time is the essence of a rape case because the statute of limitations on one of the alleged assaults runs out on August 2020. The statute of limitations has already expired in the other woman's case. If Sweden formally seeks Assange extradition to Sweden, it will be up to British authorities to decide whether Sweden's requesting precedent over U.S. extradition requests. The catch is, if they extradite him to the United States, they're also just going to extradite him. If they extradite him to Sweden, they're also going to extradite him to the United States. I'm starting to drag ass. And of course, to some degree, this has to do with Manning in the United States, on whether or not they can get Manning to flip on Assange. I'll leave it here. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.